Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa. Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa and Internet World. Welcome on in to the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral, BamaCentral.com, a part of the BamaCentral Broadcasting Network. I'm Joe Gaither. Obviously, we appreciate you guys jumping in and joining us. You're watching on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. You're probably listening to us on Spotify, on Apple Music. You'll listen to us on Audible, anywhere that you get your podcast. We appreciate everybody for tuning in and hanging out with us on a Tuesday. It's a beautiful Tuesday in Tuscaloosa. I hope it's a beautiful Tuesday where you are. We're going to have a fun show today. Before we get on into it, I want to let you know and get you a little promo on our friends, Blue Collar Unplugged. Blue Collar Unplugged, one of our friends on the BamaCentral Broadcasting Networks, put out their episode yesterday, surprise episode on Javon Quinterly's transfer. So if you guys want Matthew Gibson, Blake Byler, and Jacob Pickles' analysis on Javon Quinterly's transfer, you can check out Blue Collar Unplugged. We'll have another episode of All Things Bama coming up later in the week with Austin Hannon and Katie Wyndham. All right, that's what's happening on our other shows this week. We did get our lineup finally nailed down for our week. Goodness gracious, what a Monday that we had yesterday. Thank you so much for joining us. You can play back any of our episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and the various networks. But today we're going to be joined by our friend Kendell Hollowell of NFL Network. We can't wait to bring him into the program. He is very, very knowledgeable, one of the smartest football minds I know. Spent a year or so right here in Alabama covering the Alabama Crimson Tide for us right here in Tuscaloosa. Now, he's been all over the football map, spent some time in LSU, spent some time in the West, and now he's out in California working with the NFL Network, really just a student of the game. So can't wait to have him in the program today. On Thursday, we're going to be joined by Mac Hereford. Mac Hereford, former wide receiver for the Alabama Crimson Tide. You see him. He is a social media superstar. Mac Hereford, a little buddy of mine, he's going to join us on Thursday, so make sure you tune in. And then on Friday, we are going to have our friend Hunter Johnson at Burner L. Johnson. You know him, the Bama Twitter king. He's going to join us on Friday. So that's our outlook on the week. I will be solo again tomorrow, but that's no big deal. We can handle it. We hope you guys join us for the rest of the week. All right, so without further ado, let's jump right into today's program. Kendell Hollowell of the NFL Network. Follow him at @KHollowell_. He's out there in California working hard on the game, bringing it to you guys each and every day. Kendell, what's going on, man? How's life on the left coast? Great to see you, man.
Life is fantastic, man. We're finally in the summer. The sun is finally out in California after 6 months of gloomy weather. Joe, it's so good to see you in person. We spend so much time texting, just talking regularly, but it's actually good to see you face to face now. It's been so long.
Absolutely. I love this new format because it's more than just like I hear you in my ear when you used to join me on the radio. And so, yes, it's so good to see you. I can see your beautiful face. I sent the Twitter promo out that I said to several people, hey, you want to retweet this or you want to check this out? You probably are interested in Kendell. And somebody sent me back a message saying, that's a pretty good looking co-host you have there. And I said, hey, way better looking than I am. So thank you for classing up the joint.
Good looking guys over here, Joe. It is so good. It's been, like I said, it's been so long. It's been a couple of years, but it's so good to see you face to face again. I'm ready to get into this.
All right, absolutely. Let's get into it. And I got a docket on the plate. You helped me build it this morning, and so we kind of know which directions we're going to go. First things first, you were actually in Alabama pretty recently, a month or two ago, for a mutual friend's wedding. Congratulations to our mutual friend. I want to know just how much you enjoyed being back in Alabama.
Weekend, yeah.
Oh, it was only last weekend? I thought it was a couple weeks ago.
Last weekend, yes. No, yeah. The weekend of the 17th. So not this past weekend. Not last weekend, the past weekend. No, yeah, it was so good. It was my first time, and since I had actually left Tuscaloosa a couple years ago, actually being back. First things first. I mean, the weather. I forgot how humid it got. I knew it was going to be hot. I was like, okay, I'm down here in the South and in the summer. I knew it was going to be hot, but I can tell, like, as soon as I stepped out the plane, I'm like, okay, so it's actually like pretty hot outside, and me coming, because we had like gloomy weather, so I came in, I had my jacket and my sweats on, and I was like, well, first thing I need to do is get in some warmer clothes. But you want to hear an all-time flight story for me to get
Yeah,
to Alabama. Are you ready for this, Joe?
let's do it.
Are you ready for this? All right. So first of all, it's no easy task getting to Alabama from California, and I've learned that multiple times because there's no direct flights from LA or whatever I'm flying into Birmingham, Montgomery, wherever I need to get to. There's no direct flights. I have to connect somewhere. So I was supposed to come in that I was supposed to leave LAX on Friday afternoon. I was going to fly into Dallas, my connecting flight, and then get into Montgomery, where the wedding was at by the end of the week. I mean, by the end of the day. So they kept delaying my flight. I was flying American. So here's the first thing. If you're going planning a trip going anywhere, do not use American because they gave me the worst experience ever. So flight kept getting delayed to the point where I wasn't going to be able to make my connecting flight, and they said I had to choose a different flight. Fine, whatever it is, what it is, I'll pick a different flight. They only gave me one option. There's only one option where I would be able to make it into Montgomery by the end of the day. So I left LAX. My flight was supposed to leave at 10:50 at night. So I was like, okay, it's a red eye flight. At least I can stay awake throughout the day and I'll just sleep on the plane. So as I'm driving into LAX, my buddy of mine is taking me, and we're noticing some traffic. Like it's taking a long time for us to get there, and he only lives about 10 minutes away from the airport. It's taking us a long time to get there. Like you type in the GPS and it says like ETA. The time kept going up and up. And I was like, okay, well, something's wrong. We're not moving. The ETA keeps going up. And I was like, I'm about, I don't know, maybe 40 minutes away from the flight taking off. And I was like, dude, I'm just going to run for it at this point because the cars weren't moving. Like everybody was in a standstill. So I was like, dude, I'm just going to run. I was like, I'm just going to run for it at this point because so it turns out there was they found some like unidentified package in Terminal 1 at LAX. So
Oh my
people
goodness.
weren't allowed to necessarily get in, but the flights were still leaving. You're not letting people in, but the flights are still leaving. So I was like, dude, I'm just going to run for it at this point. And I kid you not, I must have run at least maybe up to 3 miles to get to where I was at. Because I was at a far distance when I got out of the car. Like I was a pretty far distance back. And luckily for me, I had my tiny suitcase. I just had my suit and an extra pair of clothes. So I didn't have a huge one. So not acting like I'm carrying a 40-pound suitcase. I'm getting this thing is maybe 10 pounds. So I was okay at that point. So I run for it, and I finally make it there with I don't know, maybe 5-10 minutes to spare. And I'm all sweaty. I'm all sweaty when I'm getting on the plane. I was like, I got to stink or something like that for these people that are about to sit next to me. But I finally make it, and I have 3 connecting flights. So I fly into Chicago.
Okay.
I get there on that
O'Hare?
Saturday morning, and then I fly to Charlotte.
Okay.
Hey, first time in Chicago, I finally made it.
There you go.
And then I fly to Charlotte, and I get to Charlotte, and that Charlotte flight's supposed to take me to Montgomery. And I get there, and they tell me I don't actually have a seat. I'm on standby.
No.
How are you gonna assign me? I was like, no. I was like, no. You need to. I was like, no. You need to give me a ticket, right? I don't get on that flight. I'm calling American Airlines trying to get a different one. I was like, well, can you send me to Birmingham or something like that, and I can just drive from there? And okay, we got you on a flight to Birmingham, which leaves in 15 minutes. Okay, it's on the other side of the airport, so I book it to the other side, and I get there, and they tell me again I'm on standby. So I'm like, stop giving me standby tickets and give me an actual ticket so I can get on these flights and I can go.
Of course.
I get on a flight to Birmingham, So this is me. This is maybe, I don't know, 18 hours or so at this point after I'm spending these times at airports and stuff like that between the 3. Finally get one to Birmingham, and I get to Birmingham, and I rent a car, and I found out they don't have my luggage in Birmingham. It's down there in Montgomery, so I still have to go to Montgomery after they told me I was going to have my luggage with me when I landed in Birmingham. So long story short, I was out between the airport and the planes and the driving. I was probably gone for 20 hours.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it was a long time, but I finally made it. It was a long day, but I made it. It was so good. No, but long story short, man, it was so good to be back in Alabama. It's so good to be around these people. The hospitality that you guys always show me every time I'm down there. Obviously, the food is good. The party was a great time. So at the end of the day, all the negative stuff that happened, I made it. It was a great time. So at the end of the day, it was a good trip.
Very good, very good. I'm glad you got to enjoy a great wedding, and I know it was a lot of
I just
hurdles.
threw a lot at you. It was a long day,
No,
but
a lot of hurdles in your
if you're
path
flying,
to
if you're
get
going
there.
anywhere, don't use American.
Woof. You're not alone. Our guest on Fridays, I'll ask Hunter about his travel story. He just went to Tahoe. He went somewhere in Colorado, and he had a flight issue as well. But Kendall, we're not here to complain about flights and stuff. We're here to talk football and fun, and that's why we got a couple of viewers on today. We want to get your expertise, really, because you cross over, you fall into that great area between loving the NFL and loving college football, and really just loving all levels of football. So I wanted to get you on initially to. Yeah, there you go. You're back with us, looking good.
Yeah.
We wanted to bring you on to talk about really quarterbacks as a whole, because if people don't know this, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when Kendall initially came to Alabama, he first said Bryce Young hadn't taken a snap yet. He was still Mac Young's little backup, or Mac Jones, excuse me, Mac Jones' little backup, and he said this kid's going to be the truth. He's going to win the Heisman Trophy next season when he takes over. And we're like, oh, maybe, okay, he's 5 foot nothing. I don't know. We'll see. And lo and behold, Bryce Young became the absolute truth, and everything that Kendall profoundly preached came true. So I want to get your opinions on really continuing on the Bryce Young topic, but I want to get your opinions on you as a Patriots fan, Mac Jones. I want to get your opinions on Tua and Jalen Hurts as well, because of all your NFL connections and just kind of how much you love the game. So we got a kind of a big show to kind of get into. I want to start with the Alabama quarterbacks in the league. Then you want to talk about some cornerbacks, and that sounds like a fun topic. And we'll just keep going from there. I got about a 3 or 4 or 5 different things to go from there, so we'll just keep it rolling. So Kendall, let's start with our mutual favorite quarterback, Bryce Young. Basically, you put us on Bryce Young 3 years ago, and we appreciate that. And thank you so much for sending him to Alabama from California. He's now been drafted.
I was a leader in his recruitment. That was all me. I took him away from my USC Trojans and said, no, don't help me win here with my own personal satisfaction. Go to Alabama and help them out.
Well, we appreciate that greatly. He goes on to become the number 1 draft pick with the Carolina Panthers this past spring. And, the Panthers do the Panthers thing and says, oh, we're starting Andy Dalton. Okay, we're starting Andy Dalton, and that lasts all of 3.5 weeks of mini camps or off-season activities, whatever these last voluntary activities have been. And now, Bryce Young, you proved enough. Now you're starting, and now a week later, a week after earning the starting job, still before we're taking any real live-action snaps, the Panthers reporting coming out from Dan Orlovsky and other reporters who have insider knowledge from the Carolina Panthers, saying the Panthers are, quote, surprised at how mentally advanced Bryce Young is. What? What do they think they were drafting?
I know, right? What was the 3 months of research that you were doing when you made the draft pickup? You're trying to decide between Young and Stroud, and then you get the guy in your building, and then you're surprised about what he can actually do. Like, that seems like part of the homework that you do before you draft the guy, putting all this together. Should we even be – I know they're surprised, but should we even be surprised? I mean, you just look at the timeline. So, just kind of throw it back a little bit. Just give a little brief history. He played a lot as a freshman in high school on the varsity level. And we know he's not that big of a guy. He's right. He wasn't that big for the SEC. He's not that big for the NFL. And just imagine he wasn't that big as a freshman playing on the varsity, and he played a lot, and he played very well, right? That has to be you have to be obviously very good on the field, but you have to be able to handle it playing with older people, meant to be able to handle it. It's a different playbook, obviously, when you get up higher in the high school level and you advance from that point. He was there for a couple of years before he got to modern day as a junior, and he stepped in and was phenomenal for them. Came to Alabama, and he really could have played that freshman year. But, obviously Mac Jones won the job, and he was phenomenal, did all this, one of the greatest college football seasons that we see from a quarterback win the national championship. But I still believe that Bryce Young could have come in, maybe not have had such a similar numbers as a freshman, but he could have had a lot of similar success. And obviously we saw what he did his 2 years as a starter. So, I guess they're surprised, but I know, Joe, you're not surprised. I'm not surprised. Anyone who's been around him, has watched him play for the past 6 years, dating back to his high school days, shouldn't be surprised. This is just who he is, and this is what he always does.
Well, his first year starting his sophomore season here at Alabama. I remember, I guess I believe it was Southern Miss. Alabama played one of these early games, and I just remember feeling like, oh my gosh, he's reading the field just in slow mo. Like everything is happening so slowly for him, even as a first, a 2-week-old starter, a 3-week-old starter, or whatever the point was at that point, and just, I mean, you predicted the NFL success, and probably this is a little bit of coach speak from Frank Reich there, up there on that, like, oh my gosh, we want to feed him slowly, but what is his ceiling? What does his ceiling look like as a rookie? I'm scrolling through the Panthers depth chart. I'm scrolling through the Panthers schedule, and it's not a horrible complimentary, but it's not a horrible supporting cast around him, but it's not amazing. Obviously, Adam Thielen's on the other side of his prime, but DJ Chark is still kind of a young, good receiver. They drafted Jonathan Mingo, Laviska Shenault, is kind of an interesting piece. Miles Sanders is kind of trying to hang on and prove that he's still a good running back. I like Chuba Hubbard, their second string running back. It's not a bad offense around him. What can we really expect Bryce Young to prove? Are we going to expect, where Mac Jones got the Patriots to the playoffs? Tua got hurt. It took Tua a while to get into the first season because of his hip injury. And then Jalen, I think the same sort of thing. It took him a while to get into his first season. Do we expect Bryce Young? What's our expectations here as Bryce Young super fans, basically?
Right, leaders of the fan club. Yeah, I mean, I think we'll I think right off the bat, as we did in that Miami game, you remember that he came in that first series, really chopped up the Miami defense down the field, and they hit John Mechie for the touchdown, and then everybody was like, "Whoa, now we got something." You see it off the first drive, and I think we'll kind of get that too. I think we'll really understand how Bryce Young will be able to adapt. And obviously, the big question is the size, right? He's 5'10". He weighed in at like 204. Really sure he's 204. I think a lot of that was water weight and all that. In the videos of how small he looked behind his offensive line in some of these rookie mini camp and stuff like that. So I think we'll know off really quickly how he'll be able to adapt to the NFL game. But I mean, same as everything else, I think he's going to be really good. You laid out the offensive weapons that they have. It's not a lot. I think the big question for all these guys is how healthy that they can be. Thielen is a little bit older in age. Chark is a very good, I think, number 2 receiver. The problem for him is he hasn't been healthy in his NFL career for wherever he's been, Jacksonville, Detroit last year. So if they can keep him on the field, that's going to be good for him. The good thing, I think, for Bryce is I think that because the NFC South isn't that good, I think that he can lead them to the playoffs in year one. I mean, right, New Orleans, we're not really sure what they're going to be. Obviously, they get Derek Carr, so they have a quarterback. I'm not big on teams that have, defensive coaches and stuff like that with Tampa Bay and all that. Who knows who's going to play quarterback for them? Is it going to be Kyle Trask? Is it going to be Baker Mayfield? And Atlanta
trash.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was like, it was Tampa Bay who won it last year for 16 weeks of the regular season. They had a losing record. And that I think that's going to be a lot of the similar case this year. And I mean, obviously, the guys have gravitated him in the locker room. You hear people raving about him already. Frank Reich has talked about him a lot. Brian Burns, Adam Thielen recently was this week. Guys have bought in, which is huge when you have a rookie quarterback. Frank Reich, who I think is a better offensive mind than I think a lot of people give him credit for.
Totally
he was very good. Yeah, he used the offense coordinator for the Eagles when they won that Super Bowl with Carson Wentz. You saw what he did with him. He was really good with Andrew Luck, but he hasn't had a quarterback in a long time. It's been Jacoby Brissett. It's been an older Matt Ryan. It's been an older Philip Rivers.
I think you've seen him be able to work with one hand tied behind his back the last couple of years with these veteran quarterbacks. I think he's going to put Bryce in great positions.
No, exactly. I do think that the Panthers can win the division his rookie year with him.
Isn't that
very much? Yeah. Like, I mean, a lot of it is that they don't have a good division. That's honestly a lot of it for me right now.
It's the Saints to lose, right?
Yeah, I would think so with a veteran quarterback in Derek Carr. I don't know. I mean, as far as like their window, I mean they're in salary cap hell right now. they're all over the place. So, I mean, we'll see. It's kind of what's your opinion of Derek Carr. He's only been in the playoff one time. So as far as big games in that situation, I think he's in a better situation right now than he kind of was in Vegas the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Doesn't have Devontae Adams, of course, but you would think it's the Saints to lose. But I mean,
But they can easily slip and fall. Like they could easily, like if they split with the Panthers, like very possible, and then they go out there and play, 500 ball the rest of the season. No, they could. They don't have a dominant roster, but to me, they have the best roster on paper right now.
For the most part, in the NFL, especially in today's day and age, with the age of offense and the age of quarterback, if you have the best quarterback in your division, you usually win the division, right? I mean, it's Mahomes in the AFC West. It was Josh Allen in the AFC East, Joe Burrow in the North, Trevor Lawrence in the AFC South, and then you go to you just right? You move around and you look at it and you're like, who's the best quarterback in the division? Oh yeah, that's why they won the division. And I think that we can see that in the first month in the NFL. It's like, oh yeah, Bryce Young is better than whoever Tampa Bay trots out there. He's better than Desmond Ridder. He could show that he's better than Derek Carr very early on. So I mean, if you're in that case, then bet your money on the Panthers for sure.
All right, so one more Bryce Young, quick hitter. Bryce Young, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Bijan Robinson, he's going to get a ton of usage in Atlanta. Do you like Bryce Young? Do you like Bijan, or do you like somebody else?
I think I'm going to take Bryce Young because I think they always lean towards quarterback. Sure. Who was it? I think it was 2019 when Josh Jacobs was a rookie, and he was really, really good. And you could have made the case for him to have it, but I think they gave it to Kyler Murray that year. I think it depends because I think Atlanta's going to use everything. I mean, they're going to really maximize Bijan Robinson. They're going to hand it to him. They're going to toss it to him. They're going to throw it to him. They're really going to maximize him on that team. But I think if Bryce Young does get him to the playoffs, or at least in the position to be in the playoffs, then he's going to win the award.
I think it'd be a lot of fun to see Bryce Young do that. It'll be. I'm hoping he's just stay healthy behind that line. Just stay healthy.
Mm-hmm. I hope he has room in his trophy case for that because, I mean...
I think if he stays healthy, he's going to be fine. Like, the production, I think it's going to be just fine.
I really don't worry about him holding up in the NFL as I do some of these other smaller quarterbacks because, I mean, for the most part, someone like Drew Brees really held up very well for how small he was, and so did Russell Wilson because I think they really understand. I think this is a big difference between him and Tua. That he really understands what he can and can't do. A lot of Tua's injuries, if you look at it, it's him, the Mississippi State game, him trying to roll out to his left and try to outrun, 3 guys. The bad injury, obviously, in the against the Cincinnati, of him running around, trying to make a play. A lot of that has been his problem, so to speak, is he tries to outrun people. He tries to do little things that he necessarily can't do. And I think Bryce Young really understands what he can and can't do. And I think a lot of this comes from his play, what he already does. Remember, a lot of people complained his first couple of weeks when he was a starter that he's not run. Yeah, he wouldn't run. He's not doing this and that.
He can't run.
Bryce is smart because Bryce doesn't want to get hit by 240-pound linebackers in the SEC because he knows his stature. He knows what he is. And I think he understands that if I take all these hits, I'm necessarily not going to last as long. Right? I think
he knows stretching it out parallel.
Yeah, and obviously not to say he can't take a hit, and because I've never seen Bryce Young ever lay on the ground, ever be slow to get up for some of these hits. I mean, he took some bad hits, a lot of them that aren't even legal in the NFL. If we're going to talk about it, so I don't worry about him from that standpoint. Hopefully the Panthers can protect him. The goal is now for what you do for the next 5 to 10 years is you find offensive talent for him and you find people that can protect him. That is your only job as a Panthers organization for the next 5 to 10 years, to fully maximize it so you can get the best Bryce Young that you drafted.
So you don't think, all this to conclude with the Panthers, you don't think that the Bears will be receiving like a top 10 draft pick from the Panthers next year?
No, because I think they get to the playoffs. So, I mean, you can get – but, hey, you can –
19 or so, 25.
Yeah. Right, exactly. So, but, I mean, if you're the Bears – whatever draft pick it is, you can package that deal. And if you want to do, hopefully, I don't think that they'll need a quarterback because I think Justin Fields is going to be very good this year. it gives you a little bit more flexibility, right? I mean, if you want to use that 20th or so pick to trade back and get another first round pick for 2025, or get some second and third round picks for Justin Fields.
We'll just be picking at 25 and 32. It'll be fine. You want? Well, let's go into Tua. Let's go to Tua since you already kind of started on him. With his health, that's like the main question. Other than that, every time I see him, he's great. But with his health, that's the only question.
Yeah. I'm actually pretty higher on the Dolphins than I think a lot of people are. I really think that if I've thrown out, I don't think in games. I think we can safely throw that out. He hasn't played all the games for college pros. I think we can throw that out. But I think if he can play around 14 or so games, I think you can live with that. Who's their backup quarterback? They just signed somebody, right? Because it's not Bridgewater anymore. I can't remember. But I mean, if you have a solid backup, for those 3 or 4 games, if you can win 2 of those, which they almost did, right, with Skylar Thompson in there.
Yeah, it's Mike White.
Okay, Mike White. Yeah, okay. I mean, he did it with the Jets, right? He came in, he won a couple of games. That I think you can live with that. But I mean, I think he showed a lot last year what he can do. I don't think he's ever going to be a top tier quarterback. I don't think he's ever going to be in this elite category. I think he's always going to be around kind of this middle range. In that category where you can win a lot of games with him and you can even win a division with him because they do have a lot of talent. You have Tyreek Hill, you have Jalen Waddle. There's a lot of speed. That's a fast team. Man. That is a lot to keep up with. They got A-Chain, obviously. They drafted him to add more speed. And I think Mike McDaniel is one of the better offensive minds that you'll find in football. It comes from the Kyle Shanahan system. And you see how well it worked for him, right? For the first 11, 12 weeks of the season, the Dolphins were really rolling. And I think they can stay with that too, because they're not necessarily reliant on Tua necessarily to be everything because of the system that he runs. He just needs to be efficient, accurate, all these things. And I really think that they can win the division. I like Miami more than the Jets. I know a lot of people,
I do too.
I mean, I'm not high on the Jets at all for Super Bowl talk, all this. I mean, we'll see is always my response. But I like Miami, and the way that Buffalo was kind of trending right now, picking Miami to win the division is not a bad choice in my opinion.
When here's my deal with Tua, like. If he only stays healthy for the 14 games like you alluded, where does that leave you for the playoffs first? And secondly, how does that let you view him as it's do or die time? Isn't he on the 5th-year option for the Dolphins? He basically they need to decide whether they're going to give him a long-term contract or not. And so if he goes only 14 games and they leave him with Mike White in the wild card round, what does that leave you with for Tua?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question. I don't know. I mean, they picked up the 5th-year option. So he I don't know. I mean, if you would ask me do I think he's going to be their starting quarterback in 5 years, my answer is going to be no.
Right.
3 years, my answer is probably going to be no again. If I think he's going to be their long-term starter. It's the health more than the actual play on the field,
right?
If anything, right? Because I mean, he was much better as a passer, all this and that this year for those first 11, 12 games than he was obviously his first 2 years, and having no, the defense is good too. I mean, Vic Fangio, that's a big pickup for them. You talk about their coach, you said. That is a big pickup for him. He's not a good coach, not a good head coach, in my opinion. But as a defensive mind, he's a very good defensive mind. They get Jalen Ramsey. That secondary is loaded, right? I mean, you look at it, it's Xavier Howard, it's Jalen Ramsey, it's Javon Holland, I think, is one of my favorite safeties, probably one of the more underrated ones.
My whole point is I just don't know how you can trust the Dolphins with Tua. I love him. Great. Let's do it, Tua. Let's play 17 games and be healthy. But, there's no evidence of that. I don't know how you can trust to say, okay, the Dolphins can win. I mean, they can win the AFCs. The Dolphins, you can't say they will win the AFCs because of that. They're the whole shroud. And then, you don't want to. even go further than that in the playoffs, because if you get Tua for 16 games, do you have a rolled ankle? Do you have a broken thumb? Do you have a busted head? Like, you just – he needs to go show it. And I just looked it up. He's on the 4th year, and they did pick up his 5th-year option. So they have him under contract for 2 more seasons. But likely, you know how it works. They're going to want to see him this year and try to sign him to an extension in the next offseason before that 5th-year option hits. So, like, to me, there's just so much mystery around Tua and so much mystery around the Dolphins.
No, 100%. And kind of going back to the 14 games, if he only plays that, it's which 3 games does he miss? Because it is going to be so tight, and I still think that Buffalo is going to win the division, but it's going to be a very tight race. Is it the Buffalo games that he misses? Is it the Jets game that he misses? I don't know their schedule off the top of my head, but if they're playing, the Bengals or the Chiefs or the Jaguars, are those the games that he misses? Which kind of will dictate where they are in the standings and stuff like that. It's going to be very, very interesting. I think, again, I think that his play is much better than he was given credit for last year.
Agreed.
I think having an offensive coach, I think this is his first offensive coach that he's had, because I think his coach in high school, I think it might have been a defensive coach when he was in Hawaii. And obviously, Nick Saban is a defensive coach. He had Brian Flores when he first came into the league, and now he has Mike McDaniel, which is huge. And you obviously saw it right last year how much of a difference it made for him. We'll see. We'll see what happens down in Miami.
All right, let's hit the most interesting quarterback, the most interesting story for the Bama NFL perspective. Oh, our buddy Mac Jones. You and I always kind of butt heads with Mac Jones, and that is A-okay. That's perfectly fine.
That's my quarterback.
But Mac's super interesting right now.
That's my quarterback.
He's, first year widely considered a success. Second year, widely considered an abject failure. But the circumstances are vastly different between year 1 and year 2. And now going into year 3, the circumstances different once again. Alabama fans were out on Bill O'Brien about midway through the year, really midway through year number 1, after the Texas A&M loss out there in College Station, not running the football inside the 5-yard line. Put a lot of Alabama fans out on Bill O'Brien, but now he's back in New England. Will they give Bill O'Brien a lot of credit if Mac Jones looks better, or will they say that, Mac Jones just saved Bill O'Brien, or is it all going to fail again? Is year number 3 just going to, take the Patriots into the tank again?
Yeah, Alabama fans give him credit?
Or
is that what your question?
Yeah, or anyone. Yeah.
No. Alabama fans will not give him credit. No, that is no. What you did in Alabama is what sticks. It doesn't matter what you go on to do for anybody else. What you did for Alabama is what they will remember you by. So having Bill O'Brien, I think is whatever you want to say about him as an Alabama fan, is obviously huge for Mac Jones, because for one, you don't have anybody over Matt Patricia is an upgrade. You and I are at this point. You and I are an upgrade over Matt Patricia as an offensive coach.
Sure.
As a Patriots fan, that was very, very, very frustrating to watch. But right, like you broke it down with Mac Jones. We really had 2 separate Mac Jones. Very, very good as a rookie. Obviously, he surprised me as a fan. He surprised you. Surprised everybody. Really, probably outside of Alabama fans for how good he was his first year when he came in the league. Last year, obviously, a different story. A lot of that isn't on Mac Jones because of they haven't done a good job. Obviously, no mystery. They haven't done a good job of putting talent around him. It's Devontae Parker, who's a good receiver, isn't healthy a lot. Kendrick Bourne, who I like a lot, should be playing more. I don't know his decision that's been the past couple of years. Should be playing a lot more than he is. I like him more as a number 3, maybe number 4 receiver versus a 1 and 2. And then they bring in Juju, who I like as a number 3 receiver. There's not a lot there. You have to get DeAndre Hopkins. You have to go get DeAndre Hopkins for Mac Jones. Every quarterback that has elevated over the years, obviously Tua got Tyreek Hill. Josh Allen got Stephon Diggs, and you see it progressing. The Bears have done a good job. They got DJ Moore for Justin Fields, and that's kind of been the trend for these young quarterbacks. You go get them a star receiver, and you see how much they progress. You have to go get DeAndre Hopkins. That deal needs to get done this week. I keep hearing he's deciding between the Titans and the Patriots. He's going back and forth. Don't call him up. Call up his agent and bring him back. Have a noodle arm. Mac Jones has a good arm. That is Pro Bowl quarterback Mac Jones that you are trying to throw some dirt on. Put some respect on Mac Jones. No, again, I mean, I think the Patriots have ability to be a lot better than people are going to give them credit for. The defense is still going to be very good. Still have Bill Belichick running the show.
Now you're in a stacked division.
You are in a stacked division, but you can also include, depending on the Patriots want to play, if they had DeAndre Hopkins, include them in that stacked division versus the Jets. Again, I'm not high on the Jets. Maybe that's just me talking as a Patriots fan, and
I'm not high on the Jets either.
The Jets haven't beaten the Patriots since I was
in high
school.
They're not serious.
No, I mean, I think they have a good roster. I think they have a very good roster. I'm not big on Aaron Rodgers in big games. Obviously, I mean, he hasn't won. Everybody keeps talking Super Bowl expectations for the Jets, right? The Jets have not won a Super Bowl since 1969, and Aaron Rodgers has not been to a Super Bowl since the first Obama administration. So no, I am not trusting that all of a sudden because you added Aaron Rodgers between those two combinations that they're all of a sudden going to go out and win a Super Bowl. They're going to get to the Super Bowl. No, they will be, if they're going to get in, they're going to be competing for the 6th and 7th seed as a lower wild card, and we'll see what happens with Aaron Rodgers when he gets to the big games because he does Aaron Rodgers kind of things.
Yeah, you watch Succession at all?
I haven't. Everybody tells me about that show. I'm behind.
Just a line from this past season. The father looks at the kids and says, "I love you, but you're not serious people," because they're all considered, and that's what the Jets are. I mean, yes, the Jets great roster, nice people, but out there hamming it up for the media, Super Bowl or bust. How many times do we see we're going to the Super Bowl this year, we're built for it this year? Very rarely does that ever pan out. You remember, oh gosh, the early 2010s with the Eagles put together some super team. Right. Every time you say, "Oh, we got it together and our roster is going to be the best," all right, wait till week 6 when half your roster's hurt. We'll see how well you're doing, or wait till times get hard and how much practice you really are doing. I don't know. I'm not buying the Jets until they actually get out there. If you win the division, okay, I'll give you some respect. But I'm not. I'm not.
Green Bay. He's won the division in Green Bay, and we saw what happens when they get to those playoff games. That's my whole question. Everything. What happens when you get to these big games? We'll see. Yeah, we'll see what happens when they get to these big games. That's the whole question with Aaron Rodgers. Everybody's talking about. Obviously, we want to see if he shows up for all the offseason programs, which he did, which is something that he didn't do for the Packers. But again, I throw all that out. It's nice that he's going to Sauce Gardner, sitting with these games. He's sitting next to Jessica Alba at the Knicks games, and they're having fun. They're doing all these things. But when late January comes around and you're playing Cincinnati and you're playing Kansas City, you're playing Jacksonville, you're playing Buffalo, it gets crunch time in the fourth quarter. Are you going to stop throwing to everyone outside of Garrett Wilson like you did with everybody else? Or
Joe Burrow wasn't out on Broadway.
No.
Patrick Mahomes wasn't seeing shows in Madison Square Garden, being out on the town. That's what Rodgers wants to be about. All right, let's close out this topic with Jalen Hurts, and obviously got a boatload of money this past season. Made it through the Super Bowl. Can he match what he did this past year as being top 3 quarterback in the NFL?
Can he match it? Oh, that's the question. Do I still think that he's going to be very good? I do. Is he going to match? I think losing Steichen is big. I think losing your offense coordinator is always a big deal. Yes. I have no reason to believe that Jalen Hurts isn't going to continue to get better, right? I mean, he's done that every single year since he's been 18 years old. We all know the progression, obviously. Benched, came back, did the thing what he did against Georgia in the SEC championship game. Transferred to Oklahoma, Heisman contender, got better as a quarterback for the Eagles. So I have no reason to believe that he's not going to continue to bet. I mean, that's just in his DNA. That's what he is. He blocks that outside noise. He puts his head down. He works. No matter how much you praise him, no matter how much you throw dirt on his name, no matter what you say to him, he continues to get better. That's just who Jalen Hurts is, and that's always why he's always going to be one of my favorite players, and that's why Alabama fans love him. That's why Oklahoma fans love him. If you're just a football fan, that's why you love Jalen Hurts. Isn't as competitive as the AFC, which is huge, right? It's the Eagles, it's the 49ers, and it's
the Bears. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah. But it's just like insert team number 3.
Sure.
Right? It's whoever. I mean, the Vikings, right? I can't trust Kirk Cousins. I can't trust him in these big games. NFC South, we obviously went over that. Who's out of there? Cowboys it feels like the Cowboys are always going to Cowboys. I feel like there's always a ceiling with some of these teams. So, I mean, Super Bowl 100%. Is it going to look the same as it does last year? I don't think so. I think depending on how San Francisco looks at quarterback, I think with that roster, with everything, that they are the team to beat.
I think so. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch Jalen. I think it's going to be hard for him to meet last year's expectations. And people are going to expect him to come out here and just be like guns blazing, no turnovers, offense marching down the field. I think he can do that for sure, but the consistency I think will be maybe not as good as this past season.
Yeah, no, Jalen's going to be very good again. Jalen's going to do what he does. They still have AJ Brown. They still have Devontae Smith. Him and Sirianni have a great relationship. The Eagles are going to be just fine. I expect them to begin in the conference championship game at the very least, if not back in the Super Bowl.
All right, Kendall, we don't have too much time left on the program today, and we're talking to Kendell Hollowell of the NFL Network. Make sure you go follow him at @KHollowell_ on the Twitter machine. He's putting out all kinds of nice football clips and breakdowns of film and, different talents that he's seeing. So make sure you follow him on Twitter for all those breakdowns. We don't have too much time left, and we spent a lot of time on the number one topic. So, dealer's choice. What you want to do with the last 10 minutes? We laid out a bunch of stuff in text. What you want to do with the last 10 minutes? You want to talk about the top 5 corners? You want to talk about LSU? You want to talk about the 2024 schedule or something else entirely?
A little bit of everything. Rapid fire questions.
All right. So on BamaCentral.com and on yesterday's program, on BamaCentral.com, our boss, Chris Walsh, put out his 5x5, top 5 corners in the Nick Saban era. And so yesterday I introduced that. You can read about that right there on BamaCentral.com, or you can listen to yesterday's program. So yesterday, Chris Walsh, our boss's top 5 corners, were as follows. Let me make sure I get them. Yeah, okay. He listed in 5-1 Kool-Aid McKinstry, Drake Kirkpatrick, D. Milner, Marlon Humphrey, and Pat Surtain. For myself, yesterday on the show, I went Javier Arenas 5, Kareem Jackson, Marlon Humphrey, Drake Kirkpatrick, and then Pat Surtain as well, number 1. Kendell Hollowell played defensive back out there at Wyoming and at Adams State, so he's experienced at high-level college football. What do you think about? Well, a lot higher level than I have or any of our listeners have. So you give yourself some credit. What do you think about Nick Saban? Man, he's been in the business of putting corners into the NFL. What do you think about the top 5 corners in the Nick Saban era?
I think I agree with Chris. I was going back and forth. I think so. Surtain is obviously unanimous number 1. That's not even a question. You talk about building a quarterback in a lab. He would look like Surtain. And they had Marlon Humphrey number 2. I think I agree with that. A very key part of 2 very good defenses in 15 and 16. Obviously, we've seen he's done in the pros. You said Kirkpatrick was 3.
Yes.
Or was Milner 3?
He had Milner 3.
I looked it up after you said it to me. I looked it up, and apparently Milner has the most pass deflections or passes defended, whichever one you want to use, in a season and in a career, which caught me by surprise. So, I mean, if that's the case, then obviously he went top 10 overall to the Jets back in 2013, I believe it was. So you have to – everybody
out of the league.
Yeah.
In like 2 years.
because like everybody else, like you read it, it's like they had good NFL careers. To some of them, obviously trending a little bit higher than others. Um, and I was like, you have to throw him in there because everybody forgets about him because he wasn't a good pro. And I was like, well, you have to throw him in there because of, you look at his statistics and obviously he had the accolades and all this and that, the intangibles to go top 10. So I was like, you have to throw him in there, regardless of what he did in the NFL because this is a college list. So Milner and the Kirkpatrick, and then Kool-Aid at 5, I think is the debatable one. And it maybe seem early for some folks, but
he didn't get thrown out last year.
No, it got to a point and it's like because I think it was a Tennessee game that really stood out because everybody else is getting picked on the defense. Everybody else was struggling. And I'm like, I was like, they're still not even throwing it at Kool-Aid. Like they're picking apart every part of the field. They're throwing at everybody else. But I was like, I'm not even seeing Kool-Aid because nobody throws at him anymore. I think what game was it? The Mississippi State game was the next week, and they tried throwing it at him, and I was like, that's why. That's why I was like, that's why teams aren't throwing at him. It may seem a little high, but he was All-American last year as a sophomore.
He's right on that certain path.
I already see it. Yeah, I mean, he's going to be a top 10 pick next year. He's the best cornerback in college football. He has the best name in college football. It may seem controversial. I already have him there, but I agree. He's already up there for me.
That's who the Panthers pick is going to be for. When the Panthers stink this coming up year, when the Panthers stink and the Bears get a top 5 pick, we're going to take Kool-Aid.
Don't you really? No, if you stink, then I mean, no, I hope you don't because are you saying the Panthers pick is going to stink?
Yeah, if the Panthers stink. Yeah. Right. Actually, we're probably taking Dallas Turner. We're totally taking Dallas Turner. No love for Javi Arenas or Kareem Jackson, even though they're early in the program.
Top of my head that Kareem Jackson was a corner because he's played safety. He's played safety for the past few years with the Broncos. And I was like, oh yeah, he was a corner. Arenas is another underrated one, right? Wasn't he? He was a 3-star, right? Or is it Kareem Jackson? Kareem Jackson was one of those guys was a 3-star, and they obviously excelled into what they became, which is an incredible thing when you're at one of these big schools like Alabama. I think the 5 spot is really interchangeable. I think that Surtain, Humphrey, Patrick, I think if you were to ask people around, I think those are unanimous ones. I think Milner, again, I think should be in there, but he obviously gets forgotten a lot. The 5 spot is really, really interchangeable. I think you can go with either one of those guys. But with the way that Kool-Aid was last year, the way that I think he's going to be this year, I'm going to leave him at the number 5 spot. I agree with Chris's list, honestly, head on.
Would you go? Let's say you're building a Saban defense at their prime. Would you go Surtain at one corner and Kool-Aid at the other, and just leave the rest alone?
Man, that's a good question. I'm asking after the season. Because I really am tempted because I see multiple times that I think that Saban really zeroed in on Kool-Aid very early when he was in high school.
He said he was like, him.
Yeah, he said he has these cornerbacks, he has Surtain. He's like, if I can get Kool-Aid to come here, I could turn him into an All-American and a top 10 pick. I know he had that in his mind because you see it on the field, and I think that's why you see it. You see him. I think that's the reason why you saw him play a lot as a freshman. Because he's like, if I can just get him experience now, if I can keep building on his technique, get him his confidence, get him in there, I can turn him into something special. And you saw it this year. There is no Marlon Humphrey disrespect. I told you, that's why I asked me after the season because it's going to be Humphrey and Surtain. I'll say that right now as we sit on June 27th. But if you probably ask me like November, December, I'm probably going to say Kool-Aid.
Yeah, man. I think he's next one up, and right behind him, Earl Little the second, right behind him. Not. There's a
lot of young cornerback. That is going to be a fight for a lot of these guys to get on the field because there's a lot.
Why the hell did Trey Amos transfer in? Why do you transfer into a room that's bleeping loaded?
Confidence. You want to play for the best. You want to be coached by Nick Saban. You want to play for Alabama. It kind of seems like the place to go. It's one of the places to go, honestly. It's one of it's only one of two schools I actually consider DBU. It's Alabama or LSU. I have my picks. Everybody knows what it is, and I'll keep that to myself right now.
Oh
But I
no,
mean,
this
it's
is a
one of
perfect transition. It's a
okay.
perfect transition. LSU for kind of our final topic. LSU baseball, obviously, congratulations last night. Big old win, national champions, and women's basketball win this year. So they won with 2 second-year head coaches. LSU football won the West last year, going into a second year. Brian Kelly. Do Alabama fans have to worry about Brian Kelly winning a national championship with LSU this season?
This season. Uh, yes. I'm going to say yes because they won the game last year. Um, and because I think college football is so wide open this year, right? Ohio State doesn't have their quarterback coming back. Georgia doesn't have their quarterback coming back. Alabama doesn't have their quarterback coming back. It's kind of all over the place. And they're starting to get some of their own recruits in here. There's some their own transfer portal people in with Brian Kelly. He's a better coach than I've always said than a lot of people give him credit for because he never won the big games at Notre Dame. Because everybody always criticizes him because because he got blown out by Clemson and Alabama and all these schools. Well, everybody was getting blown out by Clemson and Alabama in those days, like that. Nobody was competing, and we always knew that they didn't have the on-field talent and the athleticism to keep up with those teams. And now he does. That was the whole reason that he went to LSU, that he has the recruits and the talent to compete with these big schools. And they far exceeded expectations last year. I mean, who would have thought after that, that mess at the end of the Florida State game that they'd be in Atlanta at the end of the year. I think now that they're in year two, Jaden Daniels is a fifth-year starter, which is huge. And you saw how much he got better as the year went along. They're going to go running back by committee. Malik Neighbors is one of the better receivers in the SEC, if not the country. Secondary is a little bit of a concern because we don't know who's going to play cornerback because I think they have 6 new additions. It's a lot of new additions. But they have
Harold Landry.
They have Perkins. Yeah. No, Harold Landry is the pass rusher for. Is he with Tennessee?
Yeah, that's
a pass rusher.
Yes.
So, hey, if you got the name Harold, you can rush the passer. But they have their Will Anderson. They have their guy who can just completely take over games, who can dominate. So we'll see. It's gonna be very interesting. I can't wait for that game in November when they go to Tuscaloosa this year. That is going to be a scene. That's the winner of that game will be in Atlanta. So we'll see.
You coming? You coming to Tuscaloosa for that week?
Coming for that week. We'll see.
Make your plans. I know of a couple. Know a couple people that might put you up.
We'll see. Well, first of all, tickets to go to Alabama are so expensive from California. It's ridiculous. And we'll see. We'll see on the price. I'm debating it. I would love. I need to come down to Alabama for a game.
Or that week 2, Texas.
Texas people, man. That is too much for me. I can't hang around that. I can't hang around so many Texas people, man. I don't like UCLA as they're kind of my Auburn compared to you guys. But when it comes to Texas, man, that really gets me boiling, man. I can't see a group of people throwing up the horn signs. We'll see. That's gonna be a fun one though. Always the horns are always down, man.
Kendell Hollowell of the NFL Network. It was a lot of fun hanging out with you today. Please, hopefully we'll do it again soon. Please tell the people anything you want to promote. Make sure you follow him at @KHollowell_ for all of his football coverage and great insight. Anything you're working on, anything you want to promote, please tell the people whatever you want to let them know.
Yeah, so like Joe said, you can find me on Twitter at @KHollowell_. Kind of me being me around there, showing some football, random thoughts, all that. It's Twitter. Man, it's Twitter. Everybody knows what goes down in Twitter. But Joe, man, it's always a pleasure, man. It's so good to see you face to face. I need to make my way down to Tuscaloosa so I can give you a hug one of these days, man. And I'll give you one right here. Always, man, a big one. Wrap around. But Joe, thank you so much for having me on, man. We'll definitely do this again. It was a pleasure for sure.
Absolutely. That's Kendell Hollowell. We'll do it again in a few weeks, and we really appreciate his participation in the program today. Great insight on Alabama quarterbacks. We went with Bryce Young. We went with Mac Jones, Tua Tagovailoa, Jalen Hurts, and just a little outside the box information, just outside the box topics with LSU cornerbacks and some others. So we appreciate Kendell Hollowell joining us. We want to let you know, make sure you follow him at @KHollowell_. Tell him that you had a good time with him. Tomorrow I will be solo again, but Thursday I will be joined by Mac Hereford, former Alabama wide receiver and social media superstar. Mac Hereford played for the Alabama Crimson Tide 2016-19, I believe. So he played for Nick Saban for quite some time. We'll catch up with him on Thursday. Look forward to talking to Mac Hereford on Thursday. And then on Friday, we'll be talking to Hunter Johnson at Burner L. Johnson. Will join us. You know him, Alabama Twitter superstar. We'll kind of recap all the seasons, but we'll have really a focus on basketball with Hunter Johnson because that's both of our passions. So we look forward to really the rest of the week. We hope you guys enjoyed the program and enjoyed our guest, Kendell, today. Go out and once again follow him at @KHollowell_. Follow our other Bama Central podcast, All Things Bama, and Blue Collar Unplugged. We appreciate the other podcasts on the Bama Central Broadcasting Networks hanging out with us and promoting us. We want to thank Chris Walsh at Writing Walsh on the Twitter machine. We want to thank you guys for watching us today. I'm Joe Gaither, and this was the Tuesday edition of the Joe Gaither Show right here on Bama Central and BamaCentral.com.